In the apocryphal version of the book of Esther, you will find an expanded translation from Greek. It's called an adaptation, but I'm not sure whether or not it is the original version of Esther. I personally believe it is, because why would the original version contain less material than this version? When you read it, it's such a great story. It's got so much religion and human nature, different nuances that we can apply to our own lives. Maybe we'll never be great people like Mordecai or Esther, but we can certainly relate to their dedication to the Lord and aspire to that. We think about people like Haman, the king, and all these other officials, people that were looked up to back then. They were the leaders. You can see there was some groupthink going on. You can tell if you've heard a couple of these messages of mine that I'm just getting people to think about things differently when they read. It's very inspirational, like so many books in the Bible. I hope that you enjoy the extra material and you feel like I do, that it is the version that you would want to read with someone or discuss with someone. In the Wisdom of Solomon, we have another book that was removed. Maybe it was considered superfluous, redundant, or unnecessary for some reason. It is also another book that was translated or written in Greek originally. It's called The Wisdom of Solomon. The author describes themselves as Solomon. It does read a lot like Proverbs. There's some historical accounts of the diaspora, the victory over the Egyptians. There's a lot of really, really great references to idolatry. We talk about idolatry. It is often talked about in a contemporary sense, like what are modern idols. I don't really have an opinion about that, because I think there's things that people do habitually, and they accusing themselves of idolatry because they watch television or something a lot. And I can't disagree with that point of view, but you know in your heart when you're obsessed with something, and then you can address that with God. But I think idolatry is actually the worship of things. I do believe that television is not a good influence. Things haven't gotten better since television has gotten to the point where it is. Watching the wrong content, or maybe not the nicest content, isn't a good thing, but I'm not sure that it's idolatry. Idolatry, strictly speaking, is idols, things that we create and we set up in our house and we pray to. Those are the things that God is telling us not to do. When we talk about idolatry, I believe in the very strict interpretation of the word, because those man-made objects are false. People do put a lot of hope and prayer into things that they have enshrined in their homes that are inanimate objects. Objects that have never been able to create anything or do anything. And it's an evil distraction. God points that out, especially here in the book of the Wisdom of Solomon. Whether this is actually written by Solomon or not, I don't know. That's inconclusive. Biblical scholars and theological scholars would probably tell you that the Wisdom of Solomon was not written by Solomon. I've never read anything that gave me some direct evidence one way or the other. It's written in a way that very much emulates the writing style of Solomon. To me, it's not the proverb after proverb after proverb sort of style that we would see in the book of Proverbs, but it is certainly written in a way that is very piously instructive. And there is some amazing introspective writings in this book that you would love to incorporate into your own thinking about how you do things. He describes the way the Egyptians responded to the Israelites. And when I first read this book, I remember thinking, wow, maybe I'm a little bit more like the Egyptians than the Israelites. I was able to really benefit from reading the Wisdom of Solomon, it helped me enormously in dealing with some of those issues like idolatry and what it really means, and fearing the Lord and not our own circumstances, putting trust in God, behaving like that person that you would want to be like. Let's say you're an Israelite leaving Egypt. They made so many mistakes. They did so many things wrong. Their faith was shaken and almost non-existent many, many times. And I feel like I'm that way too. Sometimes I actually think of other people that I know are nicer and better people than myself, and I feel like now I'm wearing the hat of an Egyptian. I'm judging that person. I'm looking down at them as being sanctimonious or holier than thou, and I don't want to connect with that person because of my own shortcomings. It's not a long book, and when you read through it, read a little bit at a time if you want to. Go back and start over some areas if you want to. Again, why was this book taken out of what was read as the Bible for centuries? It's just a staggering question to me is why these things are not commonly read. And if you suggest to someone that is in a conventional church that doesn't accept the apocryphal deuterocanonical books, if you tell them about this, don't be surprised if they absolutely refuse to read it, because it's not something that their pastors would want to even discuss. And I've done that where I've gone to pastors and I've wanted to discuss it with them, and they get put off very, very quickly when you try to introduce that type of a Bible study. And I've never gotten into a confrontation or an argument about it, but I have asked people if they want to talk about it or discuss it. I hope they do. I hope that people will accept the challenge to read these books and to discuss them, but don't be discouraged if you don't find that to be the case, but be hopeful that maybe someday that you will find somebody that wants to discuss that with you.